Hello and welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. Now, the last time I did some content for you, I talked about fear, right? How can you lead with confidence when there's so much fear in the world? And the idea of embracing fear. This week, we're going to talk about helping people make change because one of the lessons from the last podcast was if we're doing it right, things should be scary. We're out to change systems, change society, change opinions, right? We're out to better the way the world works. And in order to do that, it's gonna be scary, right? And if we're not afraid, we're complacent. And that's not where we want to be. So, what I want to talk today is about in that same vein is helping make change in the nonprofit space because making change can be scary. And we talk a lot about change and implementing change, but we don't really understand how it is done, the best way to make change. And there's actually a psychological process for creating change. Now, I want to share with you a couple of things before I get into this process. First of all, I was talking with a client the other day, and they're thinking about the next step in their career. And she said, I don't know if it's time to leave or not. And I said, here's the thing. In a lot of decision making and a lot of the change that we seek, we will know when it's time. And in that, you don't have to decide when you're ready, you will know. And we spend a lot of time bouncing around. Should I do this? Should I do that? And what I usually tell people is when it's time, you will know. When you're ready, you will know. You can't make yourself be ready. And I'm going to go through in this exactly what that looks like and why that is, why you can't always force a decision. The second thing I want to say is how I learned this. So many years ago, when I worked at 501 Creative, and I worked at 501 Creative for 16 years. Every time I say that, it boggles my mind. Um, and I did a lot of work with nonprofits all over the country, a lot in St. Louis, but a lot in many, many other places. And I was privileged to meet so many cool people and learn so much about different causes, different diseases, different religions. I mean, whatever it was, I got to learn about it. And that's why I was there for 16 years, because you never knew what project was coming. You never knew what you were going to learn about. Well, one time, probably 15 years ago, I bet, we got a really cool project. And it was a researcher who was studying how to get people to ask for a kidney from a family or friend. So if you were someone who was using dialysis who needed a kidney, your best chance is a living donation. Okay, that's your best chance. And also asking someone for a kidney can be like, there's a lot that can come with that. You can't just say, well, can you ask some friends? You're like, oh my God, what if they say no? What if they say yes? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. And so people were reluctant to ask it. You can imagine, like, people were reluctant to ask. So this researcher was coming up with a program to help people understand, to help people on dialysis understand why someone might even want to give them a kidney, to help potential donors understand why they would want to give a kidney and how it could help someone, and to help demystify that whole process and hold somebody's hand in the act of actually trying to find a living donor. Through this, we worked with a behavior change psychologist because the program that we were working on, and we were working on the name, it's called Explore Transplant. We were working on the naming and the branding and the look of it and setting up all these materials that social workers would use for people on dialysis when they were like physically on dialysis to say, hey, are you interested in exploring transplant? Hence the name. If so, let's talk about what that might look like if you have a living donor, and they walk them through these stages. That's where I started to learn about the stages of change model around making change in your world. And this model, I write about it in my book, which is Courageous Communication. how codependence is making your nonprofit brand boring and what to do about it. I talk about behavior change and how to create change in both your audiences, the people you want to market to, but also the people around you, maybe board members, maybe staff people, committees, whoever it is that you want them to create change. And so I want to go through how exactly to do this because, and this is an important thing, is let's say you've got a board member who hasn't introduced you to a single new donor in years, or a major donor who's stuck giving the same amount despite your clear case for growth. And why don't they change? Why do people stay the same? You've got you seem to be creating the same thing over and over again, despite the desire to change or do more. What we want to do is understand the process of change and where people are in that journey and how you can help them to move forward. We want to meet people there, not drag them past it. Remember, we love people for who they are, not who we want them to be or what they can do for us. So we want to meet people where they're at in their growth journey, and instead of drag them up into, because when you get dragged, you're not going to go. The minute you push, somebody's going to push back and they actually get deeper into the spot they're in. Now, I feel like my experience of being in this industry for 30 plus years is change is hard for nonprofits. It can be hard. And there seems to feel like we have a lot more to lose. We often deal with personal missions and where change can feel like a loss, risk, or criticism. We have people who are deeply passionate about what they do and the work they do and the work they support for us, and change can feel hard. If you've ever been through a rebrand or a name change or a merge, please step forward, because I know you can tell me story after story. Change is hard when people are so passionate, and we love the passion. We want that. And also, change can be very, very hard. I have worked on, I think, 3 mergers, and I don't even know how many rebrandings, dozens of rebrandings. And one of the reasons that I do what I do and I've developed the processes that I have is because what I saw was just people coming in, even well-intentioned people, marketers, designers, consultants, and just making these sweeping changes and really not accounting for how that was going to impact board, staff, donors, clients, everyone involved, and really helping them along in the process. Now, for executive directors or fundraisers, you are often trying to influence people with very different motivations. A donor is going to have a different motivation than a board member, than a volunteer, than a staff member. And there's even different motivations within the label of donor. You have major donors, you have maybe one-time givers, you have small donors. All of those things have different motivations. So it's hard to think about how I can lead all of those different types of people through change. And I kind of hinted at this earlier, but many leaders jump straight to here's what you need to do without assessing readiness. So they want to implement the strategy of change, and there's resistance and there's relapse. There's a ton of pushback, and you don't understand why. And I really don't do quote unquote traditional consulting, but I know you've seen it because I've seen it a billion times. A nonprofit will hire a consulting firm, pay them very good money to absolutely ignore everything they said. And I feel like there's there's 2 truths to be had here. One is that the nonprofit wasn't ready for change, and 2, maybe the consultancy really didn't know how to usher people through change. Sure, they can do an assessment and make a recommendation, but how that impacts the people behind those recommendations, maybe that's not their jam. Okay, so we're going to talk about right now the stages of change in nonprofits. Like, I'm going to go over the stages of change, but specifically, of course, how they show up in the nonprofit stage. And stage 1 is called pre-contemplation. So that means that you're not even thinking about it. Okay. So when somebody says our fundraising is fine, despite the facts that you have declining donors, that annual giving is down, oh, it's fine. They are not even like on the radar of change. you like if you're I always use like fitness as an example. Okay, you drive by a million gyms, you don't even pay attention, you don't even look at them. That's not even anything you are interested in. Like if you've ever bought a car and then you see that car everywhere, right? We filter information around what's important to us or not. So if it's not important to us, we're not going to get that information. And that's pre-contemplation. And so if that's pretty deep denial. And again, we can't really convince people, right? We don't pitch, we don't sell. My goal is to get inside people's head and say, hey, tell me what is so great about the fundraising. I'd love to hear it from you because I'm kind of thinking it's a different way. And maybe you're seeing something about this that I don't. I wanna tap into where their thinking is in order to connect them with it. And so, or connect them to an issue or something they already value. So if I can understand what they already value, like I'm just making this up, your after school program or whatever, you'd say, yeah, like if we had more funds or, we're missing out on helping this many kids after school because we don't have the funds. So we want to focus on curiosity and not correction. I want to dive into where they are at because if it's not even on their radar yet, there's a few more steps to do that. And you can call it denial. I don't know if that's always true in every case, but it's just not in their realm of thinking. So to come to a person who's not even thinking that the fundraising is bad and tell them the fundraising is bad, they are going to immediately shut it down. I mean, I can almost guarantee that's going to be a big fact. What are you talking about? Okay, we're fine. Okay, tell me how we're fine. I would love to hear that from your perspective. Help connect with them on something that they already value, some part of the organization that they're really passionate about, and maybe start to explain how you may see it differently. Don't convince, don't pitch, don't sell. Just say, could I share with you how I see this right now? And then let it go. Again, we can't drag people through this process as much as we'd love to. But remember, an influence, which you are becoming the master of because you listen to me, is that the more decision making I give somebody else, the more likely they'll see what I want. But the minute I try to push somebody into an opinion, they will dig deeper into their own. Okay, number 2 is contemplation. Now, contemplation can be, you can last in this for a long time. So I know there's an issue, but so you know that there's a bigger issue, but you're not really ready to do anything about it. So you could drive by those gyms every day and go, yeah, there are those gyms. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I should think about attending that one time. Um, or you do a thing called getting ready to get ready, where, well, I'll buy some gym shoes and then maybe that would inspire me to go into the gym, but it doesn't because you're in pre-contemplation and that's okay. That's where you are kind of exploring the pros and cons of things. You are kind of just contemplating something that could happen. Now, I often use this model and I talk about my kids because I have 3 kids adopted from foster care. And my kids, like how we came to that decision. My husband and I thought about adoption we've been married since we were 23 and we adopted our first kid at 35. So think it was 34, 35. So like we literally thought about this for 10 years. We were in contemplation for 10 years. I would cut out articles, and hang them I had this one article that hung on a clipboard in our office for years. And there's like 15 little hole punches as I would move it, from one part of a bulletin board to the next. Just that's contemplation. You are considering it. You're thinking about it. Like you could have a donor that's thinking about larger gifts, but they're worried about overextending. They're thinking about getting more involved, but they're not quite sure what to do. And the idea here is to allow them to contemplate. So maybe explore pros and cons of a situation from their perspective. You can highlight some long-term wins alongside some long-term benefits for their benefit, but not to convince them, just to show them, hey, here's some great stuff that we've been doing over the years. You might want to consider this. What we don't want to do in contemplation is two things. One, deflect, dismiss, deny, right? Say, oh, that's not such a big deal. I don't know why you're thinking so hard about this or whatever. The second is to push them into the next phase, which is called preparation or determination. I'm a big believer in the idea that there's contemplation and then there's stage 3 preparation. And I can't make anybody move from that. I can only increase the conditions to allow it to happen. And once you hit preparation, which is when you are ready to try, when you hit preparation, it's almost like you are possessed with something now. You sit in contemplation for so long, and then there's usually some kind of triggering event. Somebody says something, you see something, or like just something happens, and this little switch flips in your brain. And now you can't, all you want to do is preparation. All you want to do is do this thing, like get ready for this thing. You don't think about working out for years. You drive by gym after gym after gym for years, thinking about actually maybe trying it, and then something happens. Like maybe like somebody is getting married and you want to look good for a wedding or a beach vacation or something like that, or you get some health news and that now exercise is imperative because there's some health issues that you need to work on. I use this example all the time. A friend of mine was in a marriage for many, many years that was not healthy. And she hung on as long as she could. It was a really, how this is when you have friends who are going through this and you want to give them the sovereignty to do what they need to do, but also you're dying inside because you're watching them suffer and you don't want them to. But it's called the black sock moment. And my friend lived with this person for years. And one time he was just yelling at her because he didn't have any clean black socks. And he's like, where are my clean black socks? And she said something in her brain just snapped and she went, I'm done. And that went from the years of contemplation went into preparation, and she couldn't go fast enough. She was absolutely ready. And you may be able to think of times in your life when a light switch, just flipped, the bulb went off, the aha moment, that flips you into preparation. Again, I'm not a behavior change psychologist, but in my experience, what I have seen is that you can only create the conditions for these light switch moments, that you can't actually make them. So, maybe you have donors who are in contemplation and you put out a really great video that highlights some of the issues that they're having, and somebody goes, oh my God, that I have to help. That's it. I'm doing it, right? I don't care. It's a kind of the release the outcome moment where you're like, I'm moving forward. Outcomes be damned. So as marketers, we create the conditions for that, and yet we can't make people do it because, again, if you push somebody, they're going to stay inclined. Oh no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. That's why I say when you're ready, you'll know. There will be a moment. Every job I've ever moved on from, there was a moment and I was like, yep, that's it. And I knew I had been contemplating going, and then something happened and I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm ready. And that doesn't have to be a good thing or a bad thing. It was just the thing that told me I was ready. And so keeping an eye out for that, but also creating opportunities for that in your marketing, in your storytelling, that you are helping people who may be thinking about it, that, hey, this is a good time to flip into preparation. This is a good time to get into action. So preparation means I'm ready to try. I'm like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. So let me go back for a second. Like, let's say you have a board member who's thinking about, like, I want to raise money, or I should call those people. I should call those people. And then they're like, hey, I'm ready to call. I want to try. They don't know how. And now they're hungry for information. This is your information gathering phase. So this is the easiest phase, because the phase you know well already, because you know how to dish out information. skill building, training, remove barriers for them. Let's work together for a script, or I'll help you draft an email, and then celebrate their early commitments and their early wins and their early tries, because they are in it. They are actually in it. Okay. When we were thinking about adopting, once we made the decision that we wanted to go ahead and do it, now you're flipping into action, right? I am, gathering articles, talking with people. My eyes, ears, mind is open to anything. You're hungry, hungry, hungry for information. Okay. Stage 4 is action. I'm doing it, right? So we have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, and action. I'm doing it. So let's say a major donor like hosts a giving circle for the first time, right? They've been thinking about it for a long time. They said, you know what, I'm going to do it. They got their information. They got you to help them. And now they're doing it. Okay. Woohoo! We're offering, you can do some regular check-ins. You can troubleshoot for them. Be really responsive, because this is the part, because they are in it and they are in the thick of it, right? And they are doing something new, and you want to absolutely be there to support them during this. Like, I'm doing it. Like, yeah, you are. You've got this. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know how I can help you. And stage 5 is maintenance. Now this becomes the new normal. Your, your board is now including donor cultivation as a standard agenda, right? This is once it's maintenance, this is so easy. You keep reinforcing the value of change. You build systems that make the behavior easier than the old one. So what makes things sustainable is ease, right? If it feels good, they'll do it. If it's easy, they'll do it. And so like making sure we create the systems to support this behavior. That could be a system of accountability with the board. It could be a lot of things. But watch for early signs of drift. Okay. So if it starts to dip, that's okay. But what do we need to do to maintain? Right? It's all about maintaining the momentum that they created in action. Now, what they created in the beginning may not be sustainable at that level, but it probably is sustainable at some level. And we just want to do that. And then the stage 6 is a relapse. And a relapse, we often see relapses as a bad thing, but when I was in um, uh, when I was in therapy, behavior modification therapy, whatever. When I was in therapy, like relapses are a part of it. They're a part of retraining your brain. And it's okay to have a setback, but we have I feel like we stigmatize the word relapse as far as, like in the AA language of, oh, if you relapse, but relapse is a part of change. It's our brain just practicing getting things right. And it's a data point, it's not a failure. And I really want to help you understand that a relapse is part of this. That maybe you got some great marketing and it starts to slip, or you implement something and you bail on it. That's okay. That's all right. It's fine. It's just part of the process. Okay. It's part of learning. And so some people are going to fall back. That's all right. It's a data point. It's an information only, no judgment, no shame. But people will have a lot of shame in this. So normalizing setback and just revisiting the motivation they had in the first place, or any barriers that came up since then. How can I support you in this? Maybe what they started to do turned out to be unsustainable. Maybe the donor said, I'm going to do these parties once a month. And they did it for 2 months and it completely overwhelmed them. And you say, hey, are we going to do the third month? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe we could do it every other month. I would say it may not be sustainable, but there probably is a version of it that is. And so a relapse will happen to let it know, like, how can we actually maintain this? And so just understand that relapse is a part of change. It happens naturally. It's our brain. Even if the gym, let's go back to the gym. You start going to the gym for a couple of months, you go on vacation or get really busy at work, you fall away and like, oh, I can't do that. Relapses are fine. It's teaching us what works and what doesn't work. And it's helping to retrain our brain, because our brain is going to want to challenge our intention. Is this something that you really want? And then if it is, right, like, oh, then sometimes you got to teach your brain that you really want it. and go back and keep retraining your brain. Okay, here's a few tips for you in the idea of the 6 stages of change. One is don't assume everyone is in the same stage. You have to assess first in your in your board, in your donors, like especially if you're going through a big organizational change like a move or a rebrand, don't assume everyone is in the same stage. Let's assess first and match your approach to their stage. Don't sell maintenance when somebody's in pre-contemplation, right? If you're saying, here's all the new things I want you to do. Hey, board member, here's all the things that I want you to do for fundraising, and they don't even think they need to be fundraising, they're not going to be doing it. We have to, again, we meet people, we love them for who they are, not who we want them to be. And so understanding the place that they're in and meeting them there is the first step to actually getting them to do what we want. Okay. Recognize again that progress is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There will be setbacks, there will be relapses, and that's totally okay. That is part of progress. We want to normalize all of that. And then use micro asks between stages. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have somebody who may be, contemplating helping, like, let's say you want to have a donor who is contemplating hosting a small fundraiser. And one of the micro asks could be, hey, maybe we could talk about what time of year might be best for you. I'm not asking them to commit to it. I'm not asking them to do it. I'm saying maybe we could talk about what that event might look for you. Like, okay, because I want them to start to flesh out what this event could look like, where it could be, where would they hold it? Would it be in their home? What would we do? Because the more that I can get them to contemplate it, the more likely they're going to be like, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. So what are some small, what do we call micro asks to help people move from one stage to another? If somebody's in pre-contemplation, it could be, would it be okay if you just thought with me for a minute? Because here's what I'm seeing. I'm not asking you to see it my way. I'm saying, here's what I'm seeing. What do you see from my perspective? Just an exchange of that. That could be enough to get somebody from pre-contemplation into contemplation, saying, oh, maybe this is an issue. Maybe this is something I should think about. Bottom line, honor people for the stage they're at, not the stage you want them to be in. Remember, change is a relationship. It's not a transaction. And that's what I saw so many years ago. Many, many years ago, one of the reasons I started to do the work I did to help nonprofits through branding is because one of the first projects I worked on of 30 years ago, we had a graphic designer come in and completely rebrand this organization. People were crying in the hallways, right? They took a Irish Catholic organization and made them burnt, a dull yellow and red. I mean, people were crying, and I thought there has to be a better way. And from now on forward, I'm going to work to build a system to help people through these changes, because change is not a transaction. They were treating it as like a transaction. There had been times early in my career where we would redo a logo and people are in tears. I didn't want that anymore. I wanted them to be a part of the process and to understand the change and the benefits of it and be excited at what was happening instead of sad and upset. So change is a relationship. Second, in nonprofits, when we help people change their behavior, whether that's a donor giving more, a board engaging more deeply, a team adopting a new strategy, we are expanding our mission's reach. The more we create change, the more we're fulfilling our mission. And third, and I've said it before, but I'm just going to end on this. Meet people where they are. When you meet them where you are, you can move them further than you think, but it starts with meeting them in the stage of change that they're at. Okay, so I would love to hear from you. Man, I would love to hear from you. Tell me, my friends, what changes you went through. Tell me how that went for you. Tell me if this content helped illuminate some of those situations that you were in. Like, oh, that's what was happening. He was in preparation. I was in contemplation. that kind of thing. I would love to hear your stories and, maybe integrate this a little bit. And also where, maybe if you have a change coming up, how this content could help you create that change. And if you've got any changes you want to make inside your organization, reach out to me. If I can help you, I will. If not, I will make sure I connect you with someone who can. Of course, all my links are in the show notes. And if no one's told you yet today, you're awesome. And I'll see you on the next time on The Influential Nonprofit.